Your rent is now $5,900. Pay by morning or leave. That's what my sister said. No mercy. Not even when she knew my little brother was in the ICU, fighting to breathe. No call, no warning. Just a bright pink notice slapped on my door like I was a stranger. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply handed her a black envelope. And when she opened it, her face went pale. Because I wasn't just her tenant. I was the owner of the building she thought she controlled. And that envelope? It wasn't just paper. It was every year I stayed silent while they used me up. So if you've ever been the one who held everything together and still got treated like you didn't matter, drop a comment with a number 1. But if you've been lucky enough to never feel that kind of betrayal, just type number 0. Because sometimes you don't need to raise your voice. You just need to show the deed. She tripled my rent while my brother was still on life support. No text, just a pink notice like I was nothing. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loud like glass, but quiet like a rope finally snapping under too much weight. It had been 13 hours since I last saw daylight. 13 hours sitting in a stiff vinyl chair beside Malik's hospital bed, listening to machines hum and watching his chest rise and fall like every breath was a borrowed favor. He was still in critical care, still unconscious, and still my world. I got home just before midnight. Newark's winter air was sharp, the kind that cut through wool and grief. The lobby reeked of mildew and someone's burnt dinner. I climbed the stairs slowly, 3rd floor, as always. The hallway was quiet, drafty, dim. It hadn't changed in years, but my door had. There, crookedly taped across the front like some sort of neon insult, was a bright pink notice. The edges flapped slightly in the cold. I stared at it for a full 5 seconds before touching it, like it might burn. Effective immediately. Rent increased to $5,900. Pay or vacate by 10 a.m. tomorrow. E. Wynn, Managing Partner, Wynn Holdings, LLC. No, dear tenant. No explanation, no mercy, just Eliza's name in print. I opened the door without tearing the paper off. My hand shook as I slid the key into the lock, though from exhaustion or anger, I couldn't tell. The apartment was cold. I hadn't been home in days. Everything inside felt like it belonged to someone else, someone naive enough to believe family was permanent. I dropped my bag by the couch and sat down slowly. The pink notice remained clutched in my hand. My phone screen glowed as I dialed. Straight to voicemail. "Eliza," I whispered. "Malik's still in the ICU. I just can't deal with this right now. Please call me back." I hit send on a short text, then leaned back, staring at the ceiling, waiting for nothing. Her reply came at 12:47 a.m. "This isn't personal. Business is business. You've had it easy long enough." I read it twice. No mention of Malik, no concern, just rent. She knew I gave up everything, Chicago, a stable job, my entire damn life, to move back when Dad got sick. I moved into this very unit to help, and she said we'd figure out the estate later. Years passed, no estate, no answers. Just Eliza, slowly taking everything. The company name, the assets, the authority. And now she wanted this apartment too. A soft knock broke the silence. When I opened the door, it was Mr. Vernon from down the hall. He stood in his plaid robe, holding a steaming container. "Thought you might need this," he said gently. "Lentil stew?" His eyes dropped to the notice still crumpled in my grip. "She did the same to me last fall. Raised my rent 40% overnight. Told me I could always relocate if I didn't like it." I swallowed hard. "Thank you," I said, voice hoarse. "You don't deserve this, Raina. And neither does that boy." I closed the door behind him and set the soup on the counter. Then I pulled out my laptop, hands trembling slightly. The screen flickered to life. I opened a folder I hadn't touched since Dad's funeral. Inside, a PDF labeled Nash, Transfer 3B. I clicked it open. There it was. A notarized document, dated 2 months before Dad passed. Transfer of ownership, Unit 3B. My name, not hers. Filed quietly. No press. No announcements. Just legal truth. I leaned back. For a long moment, I just stared at it. Then slowly, I reached into the bottom drawer of the credenza and pulled out a black envelope. Heavy. Unopened. Sealed for years. Inside was the original deed and a signed letter from Dad. I'd kept it for emergencies. This was the emergency. I held the envelope in my lap for a long time, the apartment dark around me except for the soft blue light of the laptop. Then I whispered to no one, "You left me no choice." The next morning, I didn't shower, didn't even change. I walked into Eliza's office lobby at 8:55 a.m., coat zipped to my throat and fire in my chest. The receptionist barely glanced at me. "Do you have an appointment?" "I'm her sister." She blinked. "Still need an appointment." I didn't wait. A man in a navy suit stepped in front of me. Gregory, her assistant. "I'm afraid," I cut him off. "Tell Eliza I'm here, or I start reading the deed to your entire waiting room." 5 minutes later, I stood in her corner office. It smelled like lemongrass and entitlement. Eliza looked up, cool as ever, sipping from her stupid green smoothie. "You're early," she said. "Still not paying the rent, I assume?" I placed the black envelope on her desk like a declaration of war. "Before you lecture me about market value, you should read that." She hesitated. That alone was worth the walk. Then she opened it. Her hands froze. Her face, always composed, lost a shade of color. It was the kind of silence I'd waited years to earn. "My name is on the deed, not hers, not the company's, mine." I whispered it to myself like a mantra, like the words might wrap around my ribs and hold me together. The sun hadn't even risen yet. I was still in the same clothes from yesterday, coat half-zipped, boots salt-streaked from Newark sidewalks. The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the radiator rattling like it had something to say, but no strength to say it. I sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop open, screen glaring in the dark. The PDF still filled the monitor, the one I'd avoided for months. Nash Property Deed, Unit 3B, Sole Beneficiary, Raina Lovell. My name printed in bold next to a notary seal, and my father's signature, as clean and careful as the way he folded napkins even in the hospital. I remembered something he once told me between chemo sessions. "One day, you'll understand why I left some things sealed. Some fights aren't worth speaking until the silence protects you." Back then, I thought it was just him being poetic. Now I realized it was strategy. I closed the laptop and crossed the room to the storage box under the bed. Inside were old documents, yellowed folders, receipts from repairs I had paid for, and he reimbursed in cash. And then, wedged between 2 tax booklets, was a Polaroid. Dad's hands, ink-stained, mid-sentence, drafting something on thick parchment. I remembered the moment. He had joked that real signatures deserved real ink. I'd rolled my eyes. Now I held the image like it was scripture. I dug deeper. Tucked between brittle paper was a manila envelope labeled for R.L. only, Nolan. Mr. Nolan had been Dad's property advisor, semi-retired now. He'd always treated me kindly, even when Eliza acted like I was invisible at estate meetings. I pulled out my phone. My fingers hovered over the keypad. I found his number in the old contacts, where I had left it untouched for years. "Raina?" he said, voice gruff but warm. Well, I'll be damned. You sound like your father today. I didn't bother with pleasantries. Mr. Nolan, did my dad ever file a final ownership transfer for the apartment? He went quiet. I could hear the creak of a leather chair on the other end. That's a question I hoped you'd ask sooner. 10 minutes later, he confirmed what I suspected. Yes, he said. Filed, notarized. Your name only. Eliza's never had legal claim to that property. I sent copies to your father's lawyer, but he never told her. I finished for him. Number said she'd find out when the time was right. Said you'd know when it was. When I hung up, I sat in the silence and let the echo of the truth settle. The radiator hissed softly, like even the pipes were holding their breath. I sat back at my desk and opened my inbox. Among old appointment reminders and autopay notices was an email Eliza had sent me 3 years ago. Subject line, "Don't stress the legal stuff." Inside it read, "I've got all the paperwork handled, sis. Don't worry. Just focus on keeping the apartment clean and staying available for Dad. I'll take care of the business side." I'd believed her. Back then, those words felt like support. Now, they read like a threat in disguise. Have you ever discovered that the ones who said, "Don't worry, I'll handle it," were the same ones quietly erasing you? That moment when support turns into a setup. If you've ever felt blindsided by someone you trusted, drop a comment 7 below. Now let's see what I do next. With truth finally on my side, I opened a fresh document and began scanning every page of the deed. It felt like piecing together the blueprints of my own dignity. Page after page, signature after signature, cross-checked dates, notarizations, filed stamps. Not a single one bore Eliza's name. At one point, I stopped and lit the desk lamp. The sun was beginning to rise through the blinds. Slats of soft gold fell across the wall, hitting the envelope like a quiet spotlight. I grabbed my laptop and headed out the door. The elevator at St. Francis Medical was half-lit and slower than memory. I rode up in silence, standing between 2 nurses with IV bags and a janitor who smelled faintly of ammonia and peppermint. I stepped out on the pediatric floor and found a corner by the vending machine where the Wi-Fi wasn't terrible. I dialed Deshaun Brooks. He wasn't just any lawyer. He used to work at the firm Eliza now ran. Young, sharp, and one of the only ones who quit on principle. I'd met him once at a tenant rights forum, back when I still thought you could fix corruption with petitions and persistence. Legal question, time-sensitive, I wrote in the subject line. Then I attached the PDF and the scanned documents from Nolan's envelope. I was halfway through typing the complaint to the city when Malik stirred in his room. I peeked in. His eyes hadn't opened, but his hand flexed under the blanket. That tiny motion was enough to make my spine straighten like I'd grown steel bones. I stayed there a moment, watching the steady blink of monitors and the quiet halo of morning light catching on the tubes near his face. Then my phone buzzed. 2:42 a.m. I stepped back into the elevator, letting it carry me down to the lobby where no one else could overhear. "Raina?" Deshaun's voice was clear but cautious. "You scanned everything?" "All of it." A pause. Then, "You're the sole beneficiary." "Fully legal." I checked county records. Eliza's name was never on it. "And get this, she's been collecting rent under a shell company. That's illegal." I said nothing. My reflection in the elevator doors looked back at me. Tired eyes, a chipped nail, a jaw clenched not from fear, but from fury. "She's been stealing from you for years," Deshaun added, voice lower now. "Quietly, systematically." I pressed my hand against the cold elevator wall. Then, slowly, deliberately, I said the only thing that mattered. I'm calling the city. A breath. Time to make things official. Guess what, Eliza? The city's on its way, and this time I'll be holding the door. The words didn't come out loud. I said them quietly, to myself, as I sipped burnt coffee from a chipped mug and watched the sun fight its way through Newark's filthy morning sky. I had set my alarm for 5:30 a.m., but I'd already been awake, dressed, and waiting for almost an hour before it rang. The apartment smelled like cold metal and determination. I stared at the clock. 6:02. Ms. Carr and Mr. Eldridge were scheduled for 6:30. Time enough to make sure the hallway light bulb still flickers like a seizure and the stairwell door still refuses to latch. I opened the front door and nearly tripped over Mr. Vernon from down the hall. He was crouched by the baseboard, holding a plastic bucket, catching a slow, rhythmic drip. "Third leak this week," he muttered, not even surprised. "Feels like the walls are sweating, huh?" I helped him upright. "They're coming today," I said, nodding toward the hall. "The city. Code enforcement." He blinked, then smiled. Finally, someone's doing something. By 6:28, I was on the first floor, standing near the front lobby heater that hadn't blown warm air since January. I wore my father's old construction jacket, canvas, lined with flannel, patched at the shoulder. It made me feel protected, like maybe he was still helping fix things. At 6:32 sharp, a silver city vehicle pulled up out front. Two figures stepped out. A man with gray at his temples, clipboard under one arm. A woman in a fitted city-issued jacket and steel-toed boots. Ms. Carr and Mr. Eldridge. I met them at the entrance. "Ms. Lovell?" Carr asked. I nodded. She offered a brisk handshake. "We received your report. We'd like to begin with common areas." I led them through the building, saying nothing unless asked. The hallway groaned beneath us. Paint peeled near the corners, where water damage had spread like bruises. Carr took photos. Eldridge muttered notes into a voice recorder. The elevator, as if on cue, jolted twice and refused to open. Carr raised an eyebrow. "How many tenants use this?" "All of them," I replied. "When it works." We continued to the second floor. Miss Tran peeked from her door, eyes wide. She didn't speak, just nodded once. I returned the nod. By the time we reached the basement, Eldridge already looked pissed. "You said the gas line was flagged?" I pulled open the warped wooden door that led to the boiler room. "You'll want a mask," I said. "Smells like wet cardboard and regret." Inside, the walls were stained black around the water heater. Mold crept up the corners, like fingers trying to escape. One of the pilot lights was out. Ms. Carr snapped more photos. "This isn't just old," Eldridge muttered, pointing at rusted pressure valves. "This is borderline criminal neglect." The silence said more than I ever could. We climbed back up to the lobby. I offered coffee. They declined. Just before they left, Carr reached into her folder and pulled out a bright orange sticker. "Code violation. Emergency notice. City of Newark." She peeled the back and slapped it directly onto the lobby wall, next to Eliza's framed certificate of management. I felt my lungs expand. Just as she finished, a soft click echoed from behind us. A camera phone. Mrs. Klein from 3C. She didn't say a word, just smiled, posted it to the tenants' WhatsApp group, and slid the phone back into her robe. By noon, that photo had made its way to 3 different housing forms. By 12:16, my phone rang. "Eliza." I let it go to voicemail. She called again. I silenced it. By 12:31, she was storming through the front door of the building, heels slamming against the floor like declarations of war. "You called them!" she shrieked, eyes wide, hair perfect, voice venomous. You brought the city into this building. I looked at her, head to toe, then at the sticker on the wall behind me. You should thank me, I said, voice even. They found the mold you ignored. Her face turned red. You think you've won? You're going to pay for this. I already did, I replied, for 5 years. In silence, in patience, in rent I never owed. She stepped forward, hand raised like she might point or slap or both. But she froze. Because behind me, 3 tenants were watching. Mr. Vernon, Ms. Tran, even Mrs. Klein with her camera again. I didn't blink. I suggest, I said softly, you read the code report before threatening people in front of witnesses. She didn't speak, just spun on her heel and walked back out, doors slamming behind her like a punctuation mark. She forged my name. That's not business. That's criminal. The words left my mouth with no heat, no rage, just precision. Like pulling a trigger you've trained years to aim. Lisa Fenton didn't react right away. She just leaned forward in her chair, clicked her pen once and said, "Show me." We were sitting in the back corner of a cramped office tucked above a bagel shop on Mulberry Street. Her desk was chaos, sticky notes, legal pads, charging cables, a half-eaten protein bar. But the wall behind her was a method. Color-coded timelines, headshots, press clippings, and a giant whiteboard marked with red arrows and post-its that read things like cross-check E, AN, and shell path confirmed. I slid the flash drive across her desk. She plugged it in without flinching. Deshawn had pre-organized the files for her. Leases, wire transfers, ghost invoices, 2 forged letters of authorization, all supposedly from me. Lisa's eyes narrowed. "This is bold," she said, opening a document. "New Valley HVA CLLC? Doesn't exist. Not even a tax ID." She clicked another. $17,800 to a consultancy registered to a P.O. box in Paramus. I know this scam. You funnel money through a shell with a fake maintenance report and write it off as operating cost. I said nothing, just nodded. I want names in the article, I told her. Real people, not just numbers. There's an 84-year-old woman on the 3rd floor who had to give up her meds to cover a rent hike last winter. She deserves to be named, not as a victim, but as a damn warning. Lisa looked up, impressed. You're not just burning her down. I'm lighting a path, I said. The office light flickered. Lisa scrolled through one file labeled Disbursements. Her brow furrowed deeper with every click. This isn't just fraud, it's predatory. She knew exactly who wouldn't fight back. Yeah, I said, but she didn't count on me standing back up. As Lisa kept scanning, I leaned back and checked my phone. Eliza's name sat there in unread bold. 2 missed calls, 1 voicemail. I tapped play, more out of curiosity than anything. Her voice, fake fragile. Raina, I don't know what's going on, but you're making this ugly. You're involving strangers. Can we please just talk? For Malik's sake, if not mine. I deleted it. She didn't care about Malik. She cared about optics. 5 minutes later, she proved it. Eliza's social feed exploded. She posted a filtered photo of herself looking teary-eyed on her couch, holding an old family album. The caption read, "When your own blood turns against you. Family betrayal, war truth. We'll win. Pray for us." Lisa raised an eyebrow as I showed her. "Too little, too late," she muttered. "This isn't a PR problem. It's a felony." The rest of the afternoon passed like a countdown. Lisa worked in silence, fingers moving fast, occasionally muttering things like, "Got her," or "This lines up." I provided backup, photos of repairs that never happened, messages from other tenants. An email Eliza once sent me 3 years ago that said, "Just sign this so I can handle the taxes for now. We'll formalize later. At 6:47 p.m., Lisa clicked save on the teaser post. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She looked at me. Are you sure you want this smoke? I nodded. I've been choking on her ash for years. She smiled grimly, then posted, Tomorrow at 7 a.m. How one woman stole an entire building from the inside, and how her sister took it back. Documents, interviews, voice memos inside. No caps, no hashtags, just truth. My phone buzzed again. Email this time. Subject, legal filing, custody petition sender, Wynn Holdings Counsel. I clicked it open. The PDF loaded in slow motion, like my heart already knew. Emergency request for temporary custody. Filed by Eliza Wynn, citing mental instability, reckless behavior, and hostile environment for a minor. She was trying to take Malik, not the apartment, not the money, my family. I stared at the screen, fingers numb. Across the room, Lisa kept typing, oblivious. I slipped my hand into my purse and pulled out Malik's photo. A tiny square I kept folded behind my ID. Him at age 4, icing all over his cheeks, laughing like the world was weightless. I placed it flat on the table and stared at it for a beat longer than I meant to. You good? Lisa asked gently. I nodded once. Then I said what I'd been afraid to say aloud until now. She just made this war personal. She tried to evict my body. Now she's coming for my soul. That was the only thought in my head as I stepped into family court. The air inside was different. Dry, institutional, thick with quiet battles and paperwork. No gallery, no jury, just a raised bench, pale fluorescent lights, and the kind of carpet that absorbed every scream ever swallowed in a custody hearing. I didn't flinch. I wore a dark navy suit, nothing flashy, hair pinned back. No jewelry except the silver chain Malik made me in 3rd grade, tucked beneath my blouse. I wasn't there to impress. I was there to win. On the other side of the aisle sat Eliza, looking like a magazine cover. Cream-colored pantsuit. Lipstick is too smooth. Posture too perfect. It was the kind of performance she'd perfected since we were children. Glamour as armor. Maya sat beside me, calm and razor-sharp. She didn't offer comfort. She didn't need to. She handed me a folder with everything: timelines, affidavits, printouts of text messages, hospital schedules, receipts of Malik's prescriptions, all under my name. Judge Holbrook entered. Early 60s, steel gray eyes, and the expression of a man who had seen 1,000 families destroy each other in these 4 walls. He got straight to it. This is a petition for emergency custody filed by Ms. Eliza Wynn, claiming the respondent, Ms. Raina Lovell, is emotionally unstable and unfit to care for a minor. Ms. Lovell, do you understand the nature of this hearing? I do, Your Honor. Eliza's lawyer, slick, expensive, and 3 buttons too confident, rose and began his monologue. Your Honor, the petitioner has deep concerns regarding her nephew Malik's emotional welfare. Ms. Lovell has shown signs of psychological distress, erratic behaviors, paranoia, public outbursts. We've compiled evidence, photographs, audio, statements. He slid a file across. Holbrook opened it. The first image, me, sleep-deprived, slumped in the hospital hallway. Another, a grainy clip of me arguing with a building inspector outside the apartment, hands raised, jaw clenched. A third, a paused frame from a security cam, catching me crying by the elevator. To anyone who didn't know better, it might look unstable. But then Maya stood. Your Honor, we acknowledge the respondent has been under extraordinary stress. However, we contend that this petition is not about concern. It's about control. She pressed play on an audio clip. Eliza's voice filled the courtroom. That boy? Just leverage. If he gets worse, maybe she'll finally break. The room fell silent. Maya continued. We also present statements from St. Francis Medical Center. Testimonies from nurses, administrators, and physicians all confirm that Ms. Lovell has been present at Malik's bedside every day, feeding, cleaning, monitoring medications. Not once has Ms. Wynne visited during his hospitalization. Holbrook looked up. Eliza, do you dispute that? Eliza didn't answer. Her hands gripped the table. Her lawyer jumped in. She was advised not to intrude. The child's condition— Enough, the judge snapped. He turned to me. Ms. Lovell, do you have anything to say on your behalf? I stood slowly. No tears, no anger. You don't take care of someone by posing in court, I said. You do it every single day, in silence, when nobody's watching, when no one's clapping. I fed him through tubes. I held his hand when he seized. I slept sitting up so I wouldn't miss a nurse update. That's parenting. That's love. This, I motioned toward Eliza, is theater. The judge didn't blink. He looked back at the files, then at the photo Eliza had posted on social media 2 days earlier, her staged, tear-streaked face under the hashtag #WhyYourFamilyBetrayal. He sighed. This court finds no evidence of negligence or instability in Ms. Lovell's actions. Quite the opposite. He raised the order. Emergency custody is hereby granted to Raina Lovell. The petitioner is to have no contact until further review. This court is adjourned. The gavel dropped like thunder. Eliza stood up fast. This is ridiculous, she began. Sit down, the judge said without looking at her. She did. I walked out without looking back. Outside, the light hit different, crisp, honest, like I had finally stepped out of a tunnel I didn't realize I'd been crawling through. Maya followed close behind, her heels clacking against tile like punctuation. We stopped near the elevator. She handed me a small envelope. Your father left something. It was sealed with his will. His attorney called this morning. I took it, feeling the weight of more truth waiting to rise. You ready? Maya asked. I didn't open it yet, but I nodded. Because whatever it was mine. She tried to sell the building. Too bad I own it. Legally, emotionally, permanently. The community hall hadn't seen light in over 3 years. Mold once crept along its baseboards. The floor was warped from forgotten leaks, and the windows stayed taped shut like the building was too ashamed to see the street. Today, it was full of laughter. Children ran across the polished tile with paper crowns. The windows were open. Sunlight poured in like the place had finally decided to breathe again. At the front of the room stood a table with a hand-painted banner. Tenants' Council, Public Assembly, March 5th. I stood behind it in a clean, structured blazer, hair pulled into a loose braid. Beside me, Maya, stern and graceful in charcoal gray, and Lisa, sleeves rolled, phone recording everything, in my hands, a thick, aged document folder. Inside, the deed, the real one, the one Eliza never thought anyone would open. Maya took the mic first. This meeting has been called to finalize the board's vote, she said, and to read into public record the new ownership structure of the Nash Building in accordance with verified legal documentation and supporting city rulings. A murmur ran through the crowd. Lisa nodded to me. I stepped forward. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. This building was mine long before the ink dried, because I showed up when no one else did. I opened the folder, held up the deed. This isn't revenge. This is reclamation. Applause broke. Not wild, not frenzied, but full, complete. At the back of the room, Eliza sat flanked by two IRS investigators. She looked smaller than I remembered, lips pressed tight, hands folded as if she could still pray her way out. But the prayers were done. Last week, I'd filed formal complaints: civil lawsuit for fraudulent rent collection, criminal referral for forgery and wire fraud, ethics violation to the state bar against her legal team. And now the tenants had spoken too. With a unanimous vote, Eliza was permanently removed as managing agent. She stood, about to protest, but Mr. Vernon raised his hand. "You don't speak here anymore." She froze. Her voice died in her throat, and when the investigators escorted her toward the exit, she didn't resist. No screaming, no storming, just silence. The kind of silence that means, "You're done here." That night, back in our apartment, Malik sat on the balcony in pajamas, hugging a cupcake with too many sprinkles. He grinned, teeth purple from icing. "Did you see my painting?" I glanced toward the kitchen wall, where it hung crookedly. "Crayon on cardboard. Home is where we stay." "I saw it," I said. "It's perfect." He scooted over, patted the cushion beside him. I sat. The air was cool, but not cold, the kind of New Jersey night that hints at spring. He leaned against me. "Are we okay now?" I smiled. "We're more than okay. We're home." Later, I joined Maya and Lisa in the shared kitchen on the ground floor. Someone had left warm bread in a basket beside the coffee machine. No label, no name, just a note. "Thank you." Lisa sipped tea and glanced up. "Are you ready to go public with the full story?" I looked around at the space that used to smell like mildew and worry. Now it smelled like lavender and new beginnings. I reached into my coat, touched the letter from my father, the one Maya had given me after court. I hadn't shown it to anyone. Inside were 9 words. "Use this not for power, but for peace." I looked at Lisa. "Only if it helps someone else." She nodded. Then we let the truth spread. I don't live in fear anymore. The building is mine. The peace is real. And the name they tried to erase now sits on every deed, every notice, every wall. Not as a reminder of war, but as proof that silence can turn into something louder than screams. When people weaponize love or family, they think you'll stay small out of guilt. But dignity is louder than blood, and power borrowed through lies will always collapse beneath the weight of truth. You don't need to raise your voice when you have receipts and the will to stand. Have you ever been pushed to your limit by someone who was supposed to protect you? Have you ever turned silence into strength? Tell me below, what did you reclaim and how did it change you? Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear today.